We are going to be talking today about 5 essential personal branding assets. I want to put a thought in your heads as we get started on this concept. Without a strong personal brand, your reputation is unknown. So how do we fix that challenge? Well, let's begin by talking about what is personal branding, and then what does your personal brand say about you, and creating your brand with 5 essential assets. In a recent poll of about 1,700 leaders and executives, 45% of them attributed their company's reputation to the reputation of their CEO. And 50% of global executives expect their CEO's reputation will matter even more to company reputation in the next coming years. And this applies, of course, to all of you as well. Global executives also attribute 44% of their company's market value to the reputation of their CEO on average. So these are important stats at a company level and for executives. For you specifically, here are 6 reasons that you want to think about why it's important to make the time to invest in your personal brand. Other executives who have invested in their personal brand have shared these improvements. And this is from that list of 1,700 that were surveyed who have invested in their personal brand. 87% plus had a demonstrable expansion of the professional network. Not too terribly surprising. Also, just under half had more opportunities for referrals. Another almost half had differentiation from their peers. They were able to noticeably experience a differentiation in what they were doing and how they were being perceived by others by working on their personal brand. Almost half were recognized as thought leaders. Many of you have asked the question, how do I become known as a thought leader? This is part of the results you can expect to achieve when you invest in your personal brand. Access to more job opportunities and generating new revenue streams. About a quarter of them experienced new revenue streams and the ability to generate those. So important reasons why to do this. Let's talk a little bit more about personal brands. How many of you guys know who this person is? Anybody? Nobody. Okay. How many of you know who this is in the middle? Surely we have people. Yep, Suzanne's raising her hand. Cool. And do you know who that is? I'm pretty sure you do. Right, so we all know Oprah. And do we all know who this is on the far right? Some of you guys don't know that's Jeff Bezos. Okay, so this speaks to the point. Dave Abney is the guy on the left. This is the UPS CEO, the past CEO. He was in the company as a on the floor line, started at the bottom of the ranks and went all the way to the top. Been there for forever. An icon of UPS, highly unknown. Why? All about personal branding. This is the difference between personal brand and not a personal brand. Now, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, he's getting kind of a bad reputation as well as a good reputation. Like we say in the marketing world or in the PR world, there's no such thing as bad PR. Even when it's negative PR, we're going to find a way to spin it. So keep that in mind. So your personal brand is more than your past career identity. Why is that? Because your brand stays with you as you move through industries, companies, roles. The brand that you are building over time comes along with you and is formed. You have a brand. The question is, how well known is it? How well refined is it? How useful is it for you? Is it getting any of those 6 results that other executives have experienced when they invest intentional and time to it? What do you want people to think of you versus what do you not want them to think of you? This is the intentionality that you want to be creating. They will think whatever is out there, and some of that may not be what you want them to think about when they think of you as an individual. We're going to continue on with brand framework. What makes up the personal brand framework? A lot of people in the marketing world will talk to you about brands from the marketing perspective. Your vision, your mission, things like that, which personally I think is great for a company brand. But I don't think it typically resonates well with individuals. Coming up with your personal mission and vision is kind of a cool thing, but it is often very difficult to translate into an actual personal brand. These areas we find are a lot easier for executives to figure out what is my personal brand framework. On the left-hand side, who am I as defined by what industries I love, what my expertise is in those industries, functional area, functional role, the type of company size, that can be people, that can be revenue. These types of things help other people who are listening to you and describing this for them to understand who are you and put you into a box. Counterintuitively, it is actually a good thing to help people to put you into a box. Being the jack of all trades across all possible industries and doing all possible roles makes it very confusing for people to remember who you are and, more importantly, who they might introduce you to. Secondly, on the right-hand side is your results-based 30-second star story. By star stories, what we mean is something you have accomplished. So who am I first, and then how do you know I'm an expert? Now this part, if you share facts and figures, it's a lot easier for you to explain who you are than just saying, I am the best CFO in the US, bar none. Maybe true, however, not going to feel really comfortable. So if we were to say, I am a leading expert on talent attraction and retention, having placed over 300 people in the last 3 years and run over 1,000 interviews to do so, that gives you facts and figures that says, okay, that's great. When I sink that point home and say, we have had an 82% retention rate in the last 2 years with the people that we have placed in the companies that we work with, okay, that's a really good solid number too. That actually gives the credibility. Coming into these last two pieces, really important when you are talking about your personal brand to keep in mind, what can I offer the other person I'm talking to? So what are their desired introductions, invitations, and information? In terms of expressing your brand, you have a choice. You can be interesting or you can be interested. I can assure you that being interested is easier and more compelling to the other people that are listening to you. By being interested, I would be asking questions. Tell me, who's a great introduction for you? Rob, I know that I love arts and music and you express some interest in similar kinds of things. Would you be interested in an invitation to a cool pre-opening event that's at our local art fest? Might be something interesting. Dorothy might have told me about some information that she's interested in getting more information about, like how might she go about figuring out next steps and next opportunities? That's information. If I had something about that, I could share it with her. So now I'm expressing my interest in her. So who is a great connection for me? This is the last piece. So this is a give and this is a get. Who is a great connection for me? Your examples of ideal people that you are currently talking with is very helpful in communicating who is a great connection. So this, as a personal brand framework, is a lot easier for an executive to get your head and your heart wrapped around it. So let's talk a little bit more about these 5 essential assets that you need to think about as it relates to your brand and how you come across. There are these key items: your superpower, how you look, your online presence, so digital footprint, how you speak, a lot more impactful than one might realize, and then your story, which is kind of the sum total of all of this. Anybody recognize this image? Do we remember what this is from? Famous movie?
Matrix.
Oh, yes.
Yep, it's from The Matrix. So she's a figment of somebody's wonderful imagination and very much the distinctive thing that stands out in the picture. When people are meeting you for the first time, they immediately base their decision about they like you or do not like you 55% on the way that you dress or walk or ultimately carry yourself, therefore act. 38% is on the quality of your voice, the grammar you use, and the confidence that you exude. And only 7% is based on what you actually say. I know that many of you have seen these kinds of stats before, but I think it's worth reminding all of us that these are the important things here. And what you actually say has to be there to give you confidence, of course, but it's a tiny fraction of how people make their decisions about who you are, whether they want to continue a conversation, and whether they find you interesting or not. So, one of the big things you want to think about is, what is your superpower? What do you do better? than others who also do what you do. Stacy, what would you say is your superpower that you do better than other people who do marketing in the medical device field?
I think I get groups of people to understand the value of what it is that we as a company are bringing to the marketplace, how we help the users, how we help the patients, and why that's financially relevant. Ultimately, it's about getting groups of people to quickly understand what it is that we're bringing to the table.
And Dorothy, what would you say is your superpower?
I am very good at getting groups of people at different levels to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish.
So now we're going to move on to that whole personal brand image. What do we actually look like? And how are other people perceiving us based on our appearance? So here's a lovely gentleman with a fun car, nice looking guy. Here's his professional headshot. Was what he had on his LinkedIn profile. This is now what he has on his LinkedIn profile. Which one would you hire? Rhetorical question. Lovely lady inside of the car. Much nicer headshot. Not super formal, very professional looking, even still. Why? Because it's all pulled together. Lovely that you're a dad with a small, wee child. However, not appropriate for your LinkedIn profile. So you have to think about your digital footprint across the myriad of places that people will look you up. They will Google your name, they will look you up on LinkedIn, and it matters what's there. And when you're showing up on your Zoom calls and things, it matters what you are exemplifying here. You know, what people will think about you, going back to that first slide about the percentage, the yes, no, I want to get to know them better or not. And what percentage is driven strictly by your voice, your timbre, your grammar, and how you look. Sad but true. Online presence. LinkedIn, of course, is a big place. Your LinkedIn contents, the resume, etc., is there. Cards, different kinds of business cards. Your calling card might be there without a company name or with a company name, depending on what you're trying to achieve and who you have to run into. As we shift back into meeting people in person, love that we're hearing about people going to conferences and things. Business cards will become an important part of it. Don't forget about things including your signature, your email signature. I thought this was particularly interesting that a gentleman by the name of Matt, who is an instructional technology coordinator, happens to be promoting women learning and women leading. Very cool. Says a lot about the person. So think about, what does your email signature say? What does your Facebook banner say? What does your LinkedIn profile say? All of those things about you. If you have Instagram, consider the whole picture, and does it come across with all of the values and the personal and the professional aspects of you. In terms of how we speak, there's a lot of different things that we tend to do, and many of them are perfectly awesome and fine and wonderful. These were a few key things that we, in our speech patterns, tend to say, and we ought to rethink them because they tend to remove the power from what we are saying. I personally am guilty of this one. Does that make sense? Say it all the time. And what would be much better is, what are your thoughts? Or, I'd like your input on this. This is typically, I'm going to just be a little bit gender non-neutral here and suggest men often say, what are your thoughts? Or, I'd like your input, where women tend to say, does this make sense? And I will get your vote on that here shortly. We'll see who agrees with me on that one. Maybe we should try, switch it to let's try, or it's a good idea to try. Skip the maybes, lose the lack of impact. I think this would is another one I personally am guilty of, versus I believe this would. Much more powerful. I'm not positive but, or I'm not sure but, and then you say whatever. Instead, remove the everything before that and just stick to what you were going to say. No qualifiers needed. I'm not positive and I'm not sure immediately discredits what you're about to say. I just wanted to touch base. The word just, again, I will say that oftentimes this tends to be more in the female world. We find that women often use the word just more frequently than our male counterparts. I wanted to touch base, or let's touch base, moving into removing the words here. Sorry, another good one, versus saying, excuse me. This is tricky about when to apologize and when not to apologize. This last one is kind of interesting from the perspective of how we speak about ourselves and we explain the star stories or the achievements that we have had. X was developed to increase X, and instead talk about I developed this to increase this, or to improve this, or to do this. So being comfortable owning the things for which you are part of a team, leading a team, taking charge of. Don't be afraid of that relative to your brand. It says a lot about you and your confidence based on what we're saying and how we say it. And then summarizing all of this up is ultimately your story. And within your story, you want to make sure you have your purpose and your passion, some kind of impact to top or bottom line, some other type of impactful aspect, and then a professional accomplishment to demonstrate the impact, the purpose, and the passion, pulling it all together into a solid story. Most of you did a really great job, so kudos to you on explaining different aspects of that. Some of you will probably find you didn't feel like you got enough passion in there. Maybe you didn't give as great a clear example as you wanted to of your impact that you've made on other companies and through story. And we prefer to tell the facts. It's easier than weaving it into the story, but I encourage you to make the stories the thing that you share even more than the facts and figures, because the stories are more memorable. Ultimately, this leads us into how do I present my story in various formats, be this digital or print or the summary of it. These are the things one might say. This is a career summary or professional summary in the Career Connects world. And what we're looking for is that 1 or 2, 3 sentences that summarize really pithy key points about the areas that you're most fond of and most interested in continuing to do work on. Even though you may have worked in operations, sales, and marketing, if you love marketing, then focus on marketing as your message. And then one key memorable achievement there, notable achievements, outlining them for yourself in this summarized format helps you remember the stories that you can pick and choose from to share. And you'll notice these are kind of headlines: spearheaded the migration of on-premise ERP business intelligence and data integration solutions to best-of-breed cloud environments. And you may recognize some of these. Work history as a summary. I was here at this time and my role was this, and here, and I did this, here, and I did that. And of course, education. Now, one of the things, if you are looking for a new opportunity that you want to think about is who are target companies. If you're really just thinking about 3 years from now, I want to be in a board position, I want to be in my current company because I love it, but I really want to explore other aspects to the company, maybe not even in the same vertical, then maybe target conversations might be a little bit more appropriate, or target opportunities that you may be wanting to explore that are not necessarily companies. And this is where we're addressing who's a great introduction for you. You would want to be introduced to other operational leaders in the CPG space, for example, because they're doing cool, fun things and you want to learn more about that. So hopefully this helps you understand those key essential assets to your brand, about personal branding, what does your brand say about you, and then 5 essential assets.